Testing. Okay, looks like we're here. Looks like everything working. Been having some technical difficulties of late. YouTube don't like me, and I don't like them for being the socialist censoring pigs that they are. So they try their best to disrupt my streams. Oh, let me turn this off. They do their best to disrupt my streams, use their AIs to make it hard for people to find my videos. Whatever. You're not fooling me, YouTube. I know you're part of the enemy. You're part of the problem. And you will get what you deserve eventually. Not from me, of course, but our higher power alien friends. Alien friends. Look, part of the reason I'm doing this expose is because there are too many morons and idiots who want to believe everything they're told by so-called ufologists. Ufologists is what they should be called. Ufologists. Now, am I saying there are no alien beings? No. It's like the flat earth thing. I can't prove it either way. The only way to prove that the earth is flat, I know it's not round, but the only way to prove that it's flat is somehow getting up there and looking down for yourself, which is never going to happen. And the same thing with the so-called aliens. If there are beings on other worlds and shit, the only way to do it, the only way to find out, is by visiting them, getting abducted by them, and seeing it for yourself. So you see, but what I am saying is that governments lie. And for some reason in particular, our government wants us to believe that they are hiding the secret of the flying saucers or the UFOs, or now they're calling it something else. I forgot what they change the name every couple of years and shit. But for some reason, they want us to believe that they are keeping it a secret. And I find that intriguing. I find that interesting. I believe that most, if not all, of the so-called UFO sightings are more than likely man-made. Technology stolen or maybe worked on in secret for a long time, ready for something, ready to it's a psychological thing. And this ain't nothing new. They've been talking about getting the world to come together against a menace from another world, from another dimension, for many years now. For many, you wouldn't believe how far this plan goes. Okay? Now, it doesn't explain a lot of sightings that happened a long time ago. Like, even before, I know that there are things that were that people were seeing in the skies in the 1800s, 1700s. I know there are historical people from back in the day, that witnessed things in the skies. I can't really rely on the Bible much because as my research goes along, I'm beginning to realize that the Bible is an amalgamation of a lot of stories and mythologies put into one book, a script, for lack of a better word. And I think they're using the Bible to enslave the world once again. Maybe at one time the Bible was legitimate and was perverted through time. Maybe that's a possibility. I'm not sure. But unfortunately, my research is revealing to me anyway that the Bible is just another tool to enslave us that they're using. So I can't go with the Bible. So without further ado, I will continue reading from the book by what's the guy's name? By Donald E. Keyhoe. The Flying Saucers Are Real, Chapter 6. And as always, I'm reading this book because I think it's probably, for some reason, this book has been forgotten, has been thrown under the carpet. Yet it's one of the earliest, late 40s, early 50s documents or it's the earliest account of many of the things that are considered facts. Now, just the other day, I was watching someone on YouTube, and she adamantly said, like there's no question, that the Roswell incident was a fact, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's a story, it's an account that back in the late 40s, early 50s was being told. And when they finally caught up with the guy who started it, and I can't wait to get to that chapter, When they finally caught up with the guy who went around talking about the Roswell incident, the New Mexico flying saucer crash, and they pressured him, he admitted that he made it up. And then many years later, what's his name, Marcel, regurgitates that story up again. So anyway, let me continue so we can eventually get to that chapter, because that's really the real juicy part of the book that I want to read. The Flying Saucers Are Real, Chapter 6. Shortly after my talk with Steele, I flew to the coast. For 3 weeks, I investigated sightings that had been reported by airline and private pilots and other competent witnesses. At first, the airline pilots were reluctant to talk. Most of them remembered the ridicule that followed published accounts by other airline men. One pilot told me he had been ordered to keep still about his experience, whether by the company or the Air Force. He would not say. But most of them finally agreed to talk if I kept their names out of print. One airline captain, I'll call him Blake, had encountered a saucer at night. He and his co-pilot had sighted the object gleaming in the moonlight half a mile to their left. We were at about 12,000 feet, he said, when we saw this thing pacing us. It didn't have any running lights, but we could see the moonlight reflecting from something like bright metal. There was a glow along the side, like some kind of light or exhaust. Could you make out the shape? I asked. Blake grinned crookedly. You think we didn't try? I cut in toward it. It turned in the same direction. I pulled up about 300 feet and it did the same. Finally, I opened my throttles and cut in fast, intending to pull up if we got too close. I needn't have worried. The thing let out a burst of reddish flame and streaked up out of sight. It was gone in a few seconds. Then it must have been piloted, I said. If not, it had some kind of radar responder unit to make it veer off when anything got near it. It matched every move I made until the last one. I asked him what he thought the saucer was. Blake hesitated. Then he gave me a slow grin. Well, my co-pilot thinks it was a spaceship. He says no pilot here on Earth could take that many G's when the thing zoomed. I'd heard some men from Mars opinions about the saucers, but this was an experienced pilot. You don't believe that, I said? No, Blake said. I figure it was some new type of guided missile. If it took as many G's as Chuck, my co-pilot, thinks, then it must have been on a beam and remote controlled. Later, I found 2 other pilots who had the same idea as Chuck. One captain was afraid the flying saucers were Russian. His co-pilot thought they were Air Force or Navy. I met one airline official who was indignant about testing such missiles near the airways. Even if they do have some device to make them veer off, he said, I think it's a risk. There'll be hell to pay if one ever hits an airliner. They've been flying around for 2 years, a line pilot pointed out. Nobody's had a close call yet. I don't think there's much danger. When I left the coast, I flew to New York. When Purdy called in John Dewberry True's aviation editor to hear the details, Purdy called him John the Skeptic. After I told them what I had learned, Purdy nodded. What do you think the saucers are? Asked Dewberry. They must be guided missiles, I said, but it leaves some queer gaps in the picture. And let me repeat what I'm always repeating. The word queer here is not referring to us, to anybody. It's not talking about people, okay? For those of you who are growing up today and think that all it means is weird. Back in the day, back in the 40s and the 50s, the word queer meant weird, not what people think of it today. Okay, I don't know how much of it stopped working. They tried to disrupt me again. As I was saying, to understand, I don't know where it stopped. So I'm going to have to read that whole paragraph over. But what you have to understand is that there are thousands of people, thousands of members in various secret societies that are causing the things that are happening in our world today. Till you understand that shit, okay, till you really understand it, you won't be able you won't be able to comprehend it. You have to know that. You might not be a member, but there are thousands of other people involved in these secret societies, and each of these groups do their part. So yes, it is possible that thousands of people go off and say that they seen UFOs, aliens, they were abducted, and you won't know that they're lying, that they're pulling a hoax. Why is it we always tend to believe people and what they tell us? What's going on lately that everybody believes everybody? It's the naivety of man. But let me read this paragraph over. Okay. 1, the saucers don't exist. They're caused by mistakes, hysteria, and so on. 2, they're Russian guided missiles. 3, they're American guided missiles. 4, the whole thing is a hoax, a psychological warfare trick. You mean a trick of ours, said Purdy. Sure, to make the Soviets think we could reach them with a guided missile, but I don't think that's the answer. I just listed it as a possibility. Dewberry considered this thoughtfully. In the first place, you'd have to bring thousands of people into the scheme, so the discs would be reported often enough to get publicity. You'd have to have some kind of device, maybe something launched from high-flying bombers to give the rumors substance. They'd certainly do a better job than this to put it over, and it wouldn't explain the worldwide sightings. Also, Captain Mantell wouldn't kill himself just to carry out an official hoax. And as I already said, if you look back at history, a lot of members of these secret societies do in fact kill themselves and others to achieve their aims, to achieve their goals. I'm not saying that's what Mantell did. I can't prove Mantell was a member of these secret societies and that he killed himself, okay, for a hoax. I can't prove that. But we do know historically there have been times that people have done this. All that matters is the agenda. All that matters is the goal. Just because you wouldn't kill yourself to achieve some aim doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't. Okay. John's right, said Purdy. Anyway, it's too ponderous. It would leak like a sieve, and the dumbest Soviet agent would see through it. He looked back at my list. Cross off number 1. There's too much competent testimony beside the obvious fact that something being covered up. That leaves Russian or American missiles, I said, as Steele first suggested. But there are some points that just won't fit the missile theory. You've left out one answer, said Purdy. What's that? Interplanetary. You're kidding, I said. I didn't say I believed it, said Purdy. I just say it's possible. Because I'm being kicked off of YouTube a lot, I got to come back here and look at this once in a while. Sorry. Dewberry was watching me. I know how you feel. That's how it hit me when Ken first said it. I've heard it before, I said, but I never took it seriously. Maybe this will interest you, Purdy said. He gave me a note from Sam Bowl. Just talked with D. The note ran. D is a prominent aeronautical engineer, the designer of a world-famous plane. He believes the discs may be interplanetary and that the Air Force knows it, or at least suspects it. I'm enclosing sketches showing how he thinks the discs operate. He's not the first one who told us that, said Purdy. We've heard the same thing from other engineers. Over a dozen airline pilots think they're coming from out in space. And there's a rocket expert at Wright Field who's warned Project Saucer that the things are interplanetary. That's why I'm not writing it off. Have you read the Project Saucer ideas on space travel? Dewberry asked me. I told him my copy hadn't reached me. He read me some marked paragraphs in his copy of the preliminary report. There has been speculation that the aerial phenomenon might actually be some form of penetration from another planet. The existence of intelligent life on Mars is not impossible, but is completely unproven. The possibility of intelligent life on the planet Venus is not considered completely unreasonable by astronomers. Scientists concede that living organisms might develop in chemical environments which are strange to us. In the next 50 years, we will almost certainly start exploring space. The chance of space travelers existing at planets attached to neighboring stars is very much greater than the chance of space traveling Martians. The one can be viewed as almost a certainty. Dewberry handed me the report. Here, I practically know it. Here, I practically know it by heart. Take it with you. You can send it back later. Okay, looks like I'm still here. I know the space travel idea sounds silly at first, said Purdy, but it's the only answer that explains all the sightings, especially those in the last century. Now let me pause here and ask a question. Why do Keyhoe's superiors, his bosses, want him to concentrate more on the planetary? Why are they so fast and quick to shoot down the hoax idea, the Russian and American missile idea? They seem to be more for the alien idea. I guess it sells more magazines. I don't know. It's just very interesting. He asked Dewberry to give me the file of historic reports. While John was getting it, Purdy went on. Be careful about this man Steele. After what he said about moral responsibility, I'm sure he's planted. I thought back to Steele's warning, I told Purdy. If he had the space thing in mind, maybe he's right. It could set off a panic that would make that Orson Welles thing look like a picnic. And for those of you who don't know, he's referring to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast. I thought, okay, certainly it could, Purdy said. We'd have to handle it carefully if it turned out to be the truth. But I think the Air Force is making a mistake if that's what they're hiding. It could break the wrong way and be serious. John Dewberry came back with the file of old reports. It might interest you to know, he said, that the Air Force checked all these old sightings too. The idea was still a difficult one for me to believe. Those space travel suggestions might be a trick, I said. The Air Force may be hinting at that to hide the guided missile secret. Yes, but later on, they deny the space thing, said Purdy. It looks as if they're trying to put people on guard and then play it down so they won't get scared. As I put the historic reports file in my briefcase, Purdy handed me a letter from an investigator named Hilton, who had been working in the Southwest. I skimmed over his report. Hilton had heard of some unusual night sightings in New Mexico. The story had been hushed up, but he had learned some details from a pilot at Albuquerque. One of these mysterious flying lights had been seen at Las Vegas on December 8th, 1948, just 1 month before Mantell was killed in Kentucky. It was too dark to make out the shape behind the light, but all witnesses had agreed on its performance. The thing had climbed at tremendous speed, its upward motion shown by a bright green light. Though the green glow was much brighter than a plane's running light, all plane schedules were carefully checked. I think they were trying to pin it on a jet fighter, the Albuquerque pilot told Hilton, but there weren't any jets near there. Anyway, the thing climbed too fast. It must have been making close to 900 miles an hour. The Air Force had also checked balloon release times, apparently just for the record, since no balloon could even approach the saucer's terrific ascent. Again, they drew a blank. From the way this was hushed up, Hilton commented, they seem to be worried about this group of sightings. I've heard 2 reports that the FBI is tied into the deal somehow, but that's as far as I can get. See if you can get any lead on that, Purdy told me. That FBI business puzzles me. Where would they come in? I said I would try to find out, but it was almost 4 months before we learned the answer. The FBI men had been witnesses. This was later admitted in an obscure cross-reference in the final Project Saucer report. But all official answers to the strange green light sightings had been carefully omitted. The cases concerned were 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 230, and 231, which will be discussed later. When you go back to Washington, said Purdy, see what reaction you get to the interplanetary idea. I had a pretty good idea what the reaction would be, but I nodded. Okay, I'll go flag a spaceship and be on my way. Okay, gag it up, said Purdy, but don't sell it short. If by any chance it's true, it'll be the biggest story since the birth of Christ. And that's it for chapter 7. Oh, or rather, chapter 6. The next one is chapter 7. So, what do we learn from this chapter? Well, we learn that the people that Keyhoe were working for, his editors, want him to concentrate on the alien planetary more than the Russian and American hoax theory or missile theory. That's interesting. Also, they're casually, dismissing, oh, you have to get thousands of people to be part of the scheme. Like, that's not possible. Yes, it is possible. We know organized crime have worked like that for a long time. We know the secret societies work like that. A lot of people know what's going on, and they're members of the secret societies, and they keep it hush. They keep it secret. Why is that so difficult to believe? They don't want us to believe secrets. They don't want to believe that people can keep secrets and lie about sightings. They don't want us to believe that people, men and women, can build these things. What you must understand is that the powers that be have technology, from what I hear, that are hundreds of years ahead of us. What we are using now, what we are dealing with now, okay, what we are using or that we know about is nothing compared to what the powers that be have. Okay? So I just want you to understand that. Just because you don't know the technology exists doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay, so that's it. Let me put on some outro music. Oh boy, this takes so much longer now. Next stream, Chapter 7 of The Flying Saucers Are Real.